Hello everyone, welcome back to the Python programming series. In today's lesson, we'll cover our final theory topic for this Python course, regular expressions in Python, also known as Regex. We'll explore how Regex helps us to search, match, and manipulate text efficiently using Python's built-in re module. After that, we'll have a hands-on coding practice session based on file handling and exception handling. So without further delay, let's get started and strengthen our concepts in Python. Now let us start by understanding what is a regular expression, right? So regular expression is also referred to as regex, right? So regex in Python, let us have a look at what is regex now. A regular expression or a regex is a pattern used to find, search, validate or replace text, right? So it is basically pattern matching. Next we have the import statement. So how can you import regex in Python? So for that we have the re module. So for using regular expressions in Python, we import the re module. Let us have a look. The re module provides regular expression support. Alright. Now we have some important functions. So the first function is re.search. So we are calling a method. So what is the purpose of re.search? It finds the first match anywhere in the string, right? So it is to find the first match or the first occurrence. Next we have re.match. It matches only from the beginning of the string. Okay. Next, re.findAll. It returns all matches as a list. So if you want to see all the matches in the form of a list, you can use the findAll method. Moving to the sub method. The sub method is used to replace all occurrences of patterns with a new string. Okay, so we don't have the replace method here, but instead we use the sub method. Alright. Next, moving to the common symbols that we have. So firstly we have /d, which is for digit, /w, which is a letter, digit or an underscore, all included, right? Then we have /s for white space. There's a dot operator or a dot symbol for any single character. Okay. Then plus is for one or more, whereas a multiply sign is for 0 or more occurrences. Then to check the start of a string, the pattern for that you need to start with this symbol to check the starting of a string. Next, to find the end of the string, whether it should end with a particular alphabet or a digit, you mention it using this symbol, right? So this is for end of the string, the $sign, and this is for the start of string. I hope it is clear. Let us have a look at a few examples now. So for /d, which is digits 0 to 9, so it will match all these digits, right? Next, /w, so it should match the pattern. It could either be a letter, a digit, or an underscore, right? So all are allowed. Next, moving to /s, which is for space, right? So white space characters, it will match whether it is a space, tab, /n. Alright, so any white space character is allowed. Next, to match any character except new line. So the dot symbol is to match any character except the new line. New line is not considered. Alright, so it matches the pattern where there is any character. Next, moving to example 1. So let us have a look at a few examples now. So example 1 is to find numbers, first match. So firstly we import the re module, and then we have a string text which stores this value. Alright, it is a collection of alphabets, space, digits, right? Next, print re.search. We are starting with R over here. Okay, so this is for start raw data. Next, we are mentioning slash slash d. So we know slash d here is for digit, and then plus, which is one or more occurrences of a digit, right? So it finds the first number. So to find the first number, and then we are using the group method as well. So starts from 1 and then 2 and 3, right? All these digits are identified as a pattern. Next, example 2, find all numbers. So for that, the code would be, you first import the re module, then print re.findAll, since you want all the matches, all the patterns that match in the form of a list, right? So you use the find all method. Next, we start with, we want a digit plus one or more occurrences, and then you mention this. So this is a list created, so it returns every number in this list. Okay. Next, example number 3, replace numbers. So how you can replace numbers? For that we have discussed the sub method. How do you implement it? Let's have a look at that now. So you import the re method module. Next you print re.sub. You're calling the method this, right? Digits, and then you are mentioning that it should be replaced with a hash. So all the numbers which are there in this string will be replaced with a hash. So it replaces all the numbers. So this would be the output. Alright. I hope it is clear. So here is a tip that raw strings, we are always writing R, right? So it is used to ignore the escape sequences. Alright, always remember that you start with R because it is used to remove the escape sequences. Alright. Next, let's have a look at the next example. We have it for email validation. How would you do that? Now, the pattern is, you start with R and then you are mentioning these characters. Alright, so this was for start of the string, this sign. So at the rate, it separates username and domain. Here we are using at the rate, right? And then we have a dot operator over here, which is the dot before extension, right? We always write student@gmail.com. So for email, you will be making use of this code over here. And then this is extension has at least 2 letters. This is a symbolic representation that the extension must have at least 2 letters. Okay. Next we have password validation. So for that, this is the code that we will follow. So firstly we are mentioning A to Z in square brackets. So that means there should be at least one uppercase. And then this, which means there should be at least one lowercase in this case, right? Then //d here, it is for at least one digit. Okay. And then this we have discussed that minimum of 8 characters must be there. Okay. So this is how you write the pattern for password validation. So for example, sample password could be Python123 because it has an uppercase letter, it has lowercase letters, it is a combination of digits as well, right? There are also digits and it is of minimum 8 characters. So it is a acceptable password. So the common escape sequences, let us quickly go through these now. So /n is for new line, /t is for tab, /r is for carriage return. This is for backslash, right? And then this one is for double quotes. Moving to this one, this is for single quote. Okay. So always remember, Regex is pattern matching. Then search is to find one. match, right? Find one occurrence or one matching pattern. Then match is the beginning only. It starts from the beginning, looking for the matching pattern. Then find all is to find all the matching patterns as a list. And then we have sub for replacing. So by now, looking at the examples, I hope it is very clear to all of you how you can make use of regular expressions in your code. Alright, so just practice a few more questions on it and you are good to go. Let us start with the coding practice based on file handling. Okay, so firstly, let's try to create and write in a file. So how do you create a file? Firstly, let's open a file. Supposing, so since I don't have a file already made, so I'll use the open method and it will automatically create a file, new file, right? So the open method will create a new file if it doesn't exist. And now we'll write some data into it. So supposing I write file.write. Hello everyone. Okay. And now I even want to write the next line. Welcome to Python file handling video. Right. Now I'll close the file and let us see if it is created and all the text is written in it or not. So once it is all done, let us make it print that data is written successfully. So now data is written successfully, it is getting displayed. Now let us open the file that just got created. So we need to search for students.txt. So here we have the file, right? And the things that we had written, hello everyone in the first line, followed by welcome to Python file handling video in the second one, right? So we have successfully created a new file. So we are done with creating and writing to a file. Next we have reading an entire file. How you can do that? So for that, we'll have to open the file again. But this time we'll open the file in read mode since we only need to read it. And then we'll create a file handle. Let us write file.read and then print data. Let us just quickly close this file now. And now on running this, the line gets displayed. All the data which is there in student.txt file is displayed in the terminal, right? So we get hello everyone, welcome to Python handling file handling video, which is this file. Alright. So next we have reading first n characters. So how you can do that? Now that we have understood that reads, the read method is used to read the complete contents of a file. But what if you want to read just the first few characters, right? Some specified characters only. So for that, you can even mention the size. I'll just quickly do it. So now in this only, you can mention the number of characters that you want to read, right? And now on running this, we get hello ever, right? So these are the first 10 characters. So we have hello 5, then 6, 7, 8, 9 and 10, right? So that makes it the first 10 characters. So read of size method that we discussed in the theory lecture is what is being implemented here. Now, let us quickly have a look at how you can read one line. So, to read one line, we'll use a different method, which is the read line method. Okay. One second. We'll write file is equal to open. And now, on running this, we get the first line. So, this is the first line which gets displayed. So, line by line only, the data is being read. So, read line reads only the first line of a file. Next, how can you read all the lines? So, to read all the lines, let me quickly open the file again in read mode and now try to print file dot read lines directly. So we are using the read lines method here. And then I'll close the file. Let us try to run this. So on running this, both the lines get displayed, right? So it reads all the lines and stores them as a list, right? So this is the first line and this is the second line. I hope it is clear. So till now we have done three things. So how do you read a file? You use file.read. To know the read the specified number of characters, you can use read of size method. Then to read line one by one, you use the read line method. Next, to read all the lines at once, you use file.readLines. Alright. So next we have reading the file line by line. You can even do it using another method. Supposing I open the file which we just created, student.txt, and now using the loop, we will be able to assess the lines, right? So for line in supposing file, we'll print line dot strip. And then we'll have to close the file, of course. So on running this, both the lines get displayed. So this is another method of reading each line using a loop. We are using the strip method here, right? So that helps you get the lines, each line using a loop. Next we have appending data. So how do you append data? Basically, how do you add new content to your file without deleting the existing data? So to add new content without deleting the existing data to your file, you can make use of the append method, right? Or you can even simply write file.write, even that would make it work. Let us create file is equal to open student.txt, comma. This time we'll open it in append mode. Okay. So in append mode, you'll write file.write and in brackets, let us write this line is appended. And then close the file and print data appended in the terminal. So on running this, data appended. Now let us check the file student.txt. So yes, the third line is also added, right? So the existing content remains there and a new line is appended to the existing data. Okay, for that you open it in append mode. Next we have overwriting the existing data. So how can you change the existing data? Let us have a look at that. So you open the file and this time you'll open it in write mode. Then you write file.write old content deleted. Second. And now let us just close this file and run it now in student. So we are left with no previous data, right? So all the existing data gets deleted. So always remember that opening a file in write mode removes all the previous contents. I repeat, opening a file in write mode removes all the previous content. Here we were opening it in write mode, yeah, the file we created, and all the data got deleted. Next, this method comes in handy a lot of times. So this is actually used for automatically closing the file after use. So for that we use the with open statement. Let us look now what can be done with the with open statement. Supposing I write with open student.txt, comma, you are mentioning the mode here, read mode as file. What needs to be done? Print file.read and then print file closed automatically. So basically this is the purpose of the with open statement. Okay, so using the with statement you can automatically close the file after use. So the file is closed automatically. Okay, I hope it is clear. Next, moving on, we have the next topic, which is copying one file into another. Let us try to copy one file into the other now. So let us make use of with open statement only. So with open student.txt in read mode as source. Let us write data is equal to source.read. So all the content is read. And then we'll create the file where we need to copy all this text. Supposing I create copy.txt and we will be opening it in write mode, of course, as a destination. So this is the file where we'll be making all the changes, creating a copy. We'll write destination dot write the data. Now let us try to run it. So we get a file copied. So this is student.txt and let us see whether a new file copy.txt is created. Yes, it is there, right? And we get the same data in here. Alright, so a copy gets created which copies all the contents from one file, which was student.txt. All the contents of student.txt got copied into this file, which is copy.txt. Okay, moving on, we have a method to count the number of lines. You can even do that. So we'll make use of loops in this. Firstly, we'll write with open. We'll open the file student.txt in read mode as file. Let us initialize the count with 0. Now we'll use the for loop for line in file. We write count plus equal to 1. We already know it by now. And then it should print total lines is equal to the count. Let us run it. So we get the total lines as 1 because we only had one line in student.txt which was old content deleted. I'll even open the student.txt file. It was somewhere here only. So here, right? So old content deleted. So this way you can count the number of lines that are there in a file. You can even count the number of words. Okay, let's quickly do it now. So how can you count the total number of words in a file? We'll write with open statement again. Let me just copy this one. Right? So we write with open student.txt in read mode as file. And now let us create a variable text file.read. So all the contents of the file get read. And next, let us create another variable which is words. So text.split. We already know what is the functioning of the split method. So total words is equal to, and then you write len of words. The split method will create a list, right? And total words is 3. So all content deleted, right? So it will split. A list will get created. So after every space, this is the first, this is the second word, and this is the third word. So total words is 3. Okay. Now next, what if you want to count the characters? We are done with counting the number of words, right? Counting the number of lines. Now it is time to understand how can you count the characters. So to count the characters, we will write with open. 1 second. There is some error, right? So you write with open and then let us create text is equal to file dot read, and now simply print characters is equal to the len of text. Right, so we get characters as 19. We have done the read size method, right? So if I mention 5 over here, let us see. So we get 5 because we are traversing 5 characters only. So here, since we are traversing all the contents of the file, we get the total number of characters. Right? So it counts total characters including the spaces. The spaces are also counted. Moving on to how you can search a word. So to search a word, you need to check whether the word exists in a file or not. Right? So supposing I take input from the user this time, supposing I ask the user to enter a word, right? And now we'll write the with open statement. As file data is equal to file.read. It should read all the contents. Next, if else statement we'll use, right? So if word in data, then it should print word found. Else print word not found. Now let us enter a word. Supposing I write code which writes word not found. Now let us try to search for old. We enter the word to search as old. So word found. If we write content, word found. Deleted, word found. If you write something else, supposing Python, Word not found. So this is how you can search a word using this program. Now let's quickly move to how you can replace a word. We have the sub method, right? Let us even try to do it with some other method. Right, so how you can do it? With a simple code, we'll write with open student.txt in read mode as file. So it will automatically close the file, right? We're creating data is equal to file.read and we'll create new data which will replace, right? So we write data.replace. We want to replace Python with Java, supposing. Now we'll write with open student.txt, comma, 1 second. Let us write. So in this file, we had old content deleted. Let us try to replace old with Python. So we write with open student.txt in write mode now as file, and then we write file.write new data. Once done, it should print replaced. Let's run it. So it shows replaced. Let's check in student.txt. So old gets replaced with Python. Alright, I hope it is clear how you can replace a word with another with the help of this code. Next, we have the concept of how you can print the file pointer position. So we'll open the file student.txt in read mode. And now we want to print, supposing, file.tell. So it will give you the cursor position. You know, we have discussed in the theory lecture that tell method is used to know the cursor or the pointer position. And next, file.read of 10. Then supposing you want to print file.tell again. And we'll close the file. Okay. Let us run this. So earlier when we were using file.tell, it was giving us 0. So it was at the start, right? It was here. Next, read of 10. So 10 characters read. So now the cursor position is shifted to 10 spaces forward. So tell method displays the current cursor position, or we can say the pointer position. Now you can even move the file pointer. How you can do that? We have the seek method for it. So supposing I open the file and now I want to change the position. So I'll write print file.read of 5. So the cursor position is at 5th position right now. So if I write file.seek of 0, so it will take you back to that position, right? So if I write file.read of 5 now, and then I close the file, now run it. So firstly it was showing Python, so it was at 5th position, right? And then after moving the cursor to the position which was 0, using the seek method, it moves the cursor to that position. Alright? So the cursor was here, and after using seek, I took it here. Now let's quickly understand the difference between tell and seek. So let us try to use both the functions together. I'll open the file. In read mode, print file.read till 8 characters. Then print file.tell. After that, file.seek as the position as 2. Now I wanted to print file.read after this, and then I'll close the file. So on running this, firstly we get Python C. So file.read, the first 8 characters get displayed, right? I hope it is clear. Next, file.tell will give you the cursor position, which is 8. Now, using the seek method, the cursor position moves back from 8 to 2 now. So, this content is red, right? So, second position will be here. After that, all the content is red, right? Here. So this is the basic difference between tell and seek. So tell is used to know the cursor position, whereas seek is move back the cursor position to a specified position. Next, let us try to handle the file not found error. What if the file doesn't exist? The file that you are trying to access isn't there. So in that case, we make use of the try except block, right? So you'll mention in the try block, you'll open the file first. So I don't have abc.txt on my device. I'll write print file.read, and then I'll close the file. In the except block, I'll mention file not found error. If that error occurs, it should print file does not exist. Let me just comment this out. And now let us try to run it. So we get a file does not exist error because I don't have that file on my device. Okay, so it prevents the program from crashing if the file is missing. Next we have how can you store the student records, right? So let us take user input and then store it into a file. Let us quickly write with open student.txt, comma. We need to append it right now. So we'll open it in append mode. Let us take the input for name of the student. And then let us take user input for marks. Right? Now file.write name plus a space I want, and then marks and then move to the next line. So once done, it should print record saved. Now let us try to run it. So enter name. Let us enter any name. Enter marks. Enter any marks. Now why are we getting this error? It says can only concatenate strings. Okay, so we are typecasting it to int, but this wasn't required. String concatenation we are performing. Cannot do that otherwise, right? So for that purpose, enter the marks and record as save. And using student.txt, we get this, right? Now let us wind this all up by displaying the student records, right, that we just created. So I'll quickly write a code with open student.txt in read mode as file, and then we use the for loop, right? So for line in file, you print line dot strip. Now on running this, the detail gets displayed, right? So it reads and displays all the saved records. So that's it for the day, and we have covered all about file handling till now. Now let us start with the new concept and have some hands-on practice, coding practice on exception handling. Hello everyone, so let us now start with our programming practice on exception handling, right? So let us first understand what is the need for exception handling. Let me write a program and explain to you with the help of that. So supposing I take A as 10 and B as 0. Now I want to print A by B. So we all know that it is not possible. So let us see how the device responds. Okay. So on running this, let us see. So we get an error which is the zero division error. So the program crashes when an error occurs. So for that purpose, we understand the concept of exception handling. That helps you handle the exceptions in a way that you do not face an error. Okay. So now let us try exception handling with a basic try except block first. So supposing, firstly always mention the try. Now the same problem, let us see if we get an error or not. And then after the try block is done, we move to the except block, wherein if an error is encountered, it should print that an error occurred. Okay. And after that, let's ask it to print that the program continues. Now let us try to run this once and see if it works. So this time an error occurred, so we get that notification and then the program continues. So this time an error of this sort wasn't raised, right? The zero division error. So it prevents the program from crashing, and this way using the try except block, we can handle the errors very smoothly. Next, let us try catching the zero division error. So in that case, there are some built-in errors we know already and we have discussed in our theory lectures. So we want it to print numerator by denominator, right? In the try block, we'll be writing this. In the except block, you can simply mention the zero division error. It's already getting displayed, right? So it should print that cannot divide by 0. Let me just comment this out and now run this. So it simply displays that it cannot divide by 0. Since a zero division error was occurring, so it displayed cannot divide by 0. Okay, so it handles the division by 0 error separately. This is the error name, zero division error. Next, we have catching the value error. Let us understand what is a value error now. Supposing I write the try block. Let me take the input for age from the user. 1 second. Alright. And then print the age. Now, what if the person enters a negative value or a decimal value? Something of that sort, right? In case it is not an integer, how will it handle it? So for that, we have the value error exception. So it will print, let us say it should enter only numbers. Once the code for this, the catching of value error is written, let us try to run it and see how it responds. So supposing I enter the age as 23, 23 will get displayed. But now if I enter the age as a decimal number, supposing, so it will display, please enter only numbers, right? So the except block gets executed since a value error is encountered. So it occurs when the input cannot be converted into the required type. Next, we have the index errors, right? So for index error, let's try another code. So we'll write the try block. So firstly, let's create a list, right? For index error, we need to have a list. And let us try to assess some value which is not actually there. So that case, we'll get an index error. So let us try to print numbers at index number 5. So here, since there are only 4 elements, right? So the index will go from 0, 1, 2, and 3, right? 0 to n minus 1. So this is not possible. Therefore, an index error will occur. So it will move the control to the except block and it should print that the index does not exist. Let us try to run it. So index does not exist. Now supposing I try to assess the element at index number 4, even in that case index does not exist. But for 0 to 3, it will work perfectly. So the element at index number 2 is 30, so it gets displayed. Alright. So an index error is raised when an invalid list index is tried to be assessed. Okay. Next we have the name error. So for name error, I write the try block as supposing print student, but we haven't defined it, right? So in the except block, we'll mention the name error and should print that the variable is not defined. Alright, on running it, we get variable not defined. In case I had defined it earlier only, so it wouldn't have shown any error, right? So in that case, the try block is executed. Next, we have the type error. So the type error is raised when incompatible data types are used. Let us try that as well. Supposing I write the try block as, let us create a variable result is equal to 5 plus, right? A string and integer, we are trying to add that. So except block, in the except block, we'll write on encountering a type error, it should print that cannot add integer and string, right? So this is how it works. An integer and a string cannot be added. Okay. So this is all about type error. So it is raised when the incompatible data types are tried to be used. Here we were trying to add integer and a string. So it gave us a type error and displayed cannot add integer and string. Next we have the key error. So I'll write, supposing I create a dictionary. So name key, let us assign the name as Rahul and the age as 20. So here the keys are name and age, right? And the values assigned are Rahul and 20 respectively, right? In this dictionary. Dictionary is a combination of key value pairs. So now let us try to assess a key which does not exist. So print student at key which is supposing marks. Okay. Except key error. So if a key error is encountered, it should print key not found. Let us run it. So it prints key not found. Definitely marks doesn't exist. So we get key not found. Now if we try to assess the value at key name, so it will display Rahul correctly. But in case you try to assess a key in a dictionary which does not exist, a key error is raised. I hope you are clear with what are key errors. Alright. Next, we have file not found error. So the file not found error will be raised when a file that you're trying to assess is missing, right? So supposing we try to open a file, let us say data.txt, and we want to open it in write mode, right? In the except block, we'll write file not found error. So in that case, it should print file is missing, supposing, right? Now let's try to run it. So there is no such file, so we get file is missing, okay? Now supposing I try to access this file. So in that case, no error is displayed because I already have a file named file.txt on this device. But in case we were trying to access data.txt, we were getting an error which is file is missing, or we can say the file does not exist. So this was the file not found error. Next, we have the concept of handling multiple exceptions. So how you can do that? You can use the try block with multiple except blocks also. So supposing I write the try block first, we take an input from the user itself for an integer. Okay. And now we try to print 100 by now. So there are two chances of errors that can be created. Either we can get a value error if the person enters a input which is not an integer, and we can even get a zero division error if the person or the user enters a zero value. So it will result in zero division error. So for that, in the except block, Firstly, we'll mention the value error. So it should print invalid input. And next, we'll create another except block for the 0 division error, which should print cannot divide by 0. Let us try to run it. So supposing I enter a number 0, so cannot divide by 0. Again, I enter a number which is not an integer, so invalid input. Now supposing I enter a number which is 100 itself, so we'll get float point number which is 1. Okay. I hope you have understood that one try block can handle different exceptions. So you can have try with many except blocks also to handle multiple exceptions. Next we have multiple exceptions in just one except. Even that is possible. Supposing I write the try block, I take input for number from the user. Alright. Now I wanted to print 100 by num, same as before. And now in the except block, to mention both the exceptions together, multiple exceptions, simply in brackets or we can say parenthesis, mention both the errors and then print either invalid input or division by 0. So on running it, if you give a value of 0, it will print invalid input or division by 0, right? Otherwise, let's take another input. Supposing I enter 12.34. So invalid input or division by 0. Let's try this once again. If I enter the number as 0, we'll get invalid input or division by 0. Okay. So this is how you can write multiple exceptions in just one except block. Next, we have a generic exception which catches almost every exception. So for that, we have an exception class which has all exceptions inside it. Right? We have discussed about base exception class and the exception class. So the exception class helps you derive both the user defined and the built-in exceptions. So supposing we have x is equal to 10 by 0. So we are taking an invalid situation which will definitely raise an exception. So we'll mention the exception class over here, right? As E, supposing I'm analyzing it. So it should print error and then E. Okay. So now let's try to run it. So we get error division by 0. Okay. I hope it is clear. So it catches almost every exception which is included in the exception class and displays the result accordingly. Next, printing the exception message. So it will display the actual error generated by Python. So in the try block, I write print, supposing 6 by 0 this time, okay? And now in the except block, let me write exception as taking the help of aliasing here, should print the error. So let us try to run it. We get division by 0, okay? So it displays the actual error generated by Python itself. Next, we even take help of the else block in this. So using the else block, it executes only when no exception occurs. So if the except block isn't executed in any case, in that case the else block is executed when no exception occurs. So I have try, I'm taking input for a number from the user itself, right? So enter num, and now in the accept block, let me add value error, right? It should print invalid input, else print. So what task it should perform otherwise? Supposing I wanted to print the square of the number. So I'll write num into 2, right? So supposing I enter a number first. Supposing I take 2. So 2 to the power 2 will give us 4. Here the else part is executed, but because no exception occurs, now we can even try to have an exception. So let us enter a number, supposing 12.23. So invalid input error is generated. Okay, so this is how the else block works, only when there is no exception. Let us take another example for this. So let us try. Supposing we have A as 20, B as 30. Let us take B as 4, okay? So now we wanted to print A by B. So we all know 20 by 4 will give us 5, except 0 division error. It should print division by 0. Alright, and in the else part, it should print division successful. Now on running this, we get the answer as 5.0, and then it even prints division successful since the except block didn't execute, right? So it combines exception handling with successful execution, right? So even the else part executes. Next, we even have the try finally block. So after understanding the try except else, it's time to understand the try and finally block. Okay. So supposing I try to print 10 by 0. In the except block, I want to print exception handled if there is any exception. Okay. Finally, I wanted to print that the finally block is executed. Now on running this, you see we get exception handled because the control goes to the except block. 10 by 0, division by 0 is not possible. So it prints the command in the except block, which is exception handled, and then the finally block is executed, right? The control shifts to the finally block. Now supposing I write 10 by 5 over here and try to run it this time. So it will give 2.0, and then again the finally block is run. So the finally block runs whether an exception occurs or not. No matter what, the finally block is always executed. Okay? So it works both ways. Next, you can even try the nested try except. Let us take an example of that now. Supposing I write the try block, and inside it I take another try except block in which I try to print 10 by 0 first. And in the except block, inside the try block only, because we are taking help of nesting, except 0 division error, print inner loop, inner exception supposing. Okay. And then let's get out of the try loop, the try block. And now in the except block, Let us print outer exception. Now let's run it. So inner exception, right? Inner exception is encountered because inside the try block, we have another try block. 10 by 0 is not possible. So the control shifts to the except block and it prints inner exception. So one try block inside another is fully possible. Okay. Next we have raising an exception manually. This is actually a very important point. So supposing you want to raise an exception manually by your own. So how you can do that? For that, we take help of the raise keyword. Let us try to do it once. Supposing I take input for age from the user. Alright. And now I write the if blocks that if age is less than 18, the person is not eligible to vote. So in that case, an exception I want to raise. So I use the raise keyword here. And in the exception, I mention not eligible. Okay. Otherwise, it should print eligible. So now let's try to run it. Supposing I mention 20 as age, so I'm eligible. I enter 12 as age. So this time an exception not eligible is encountered. Right? So this is how it works. Alright? So use the raise keyword to generate an exception. Next we have raise value error. So you can even raise a specific exception. Supposing I take marks, I take input for marks from the user itself. Alright. And now in the if block, I mentioned if marks greater than 100, supposing, then it should raise value error, which is, let us say, it should print marks cannot exceed 100. So it needs to be in double quotations. Else it should print valid marks. Okay. Let us try to run it now. So if we enter the marks to be 12, so valid marks. If we enter the marks as 100 this time, valid marks again. If I enter marks greater than 100, so 120, we'll get a value error which says marks cannot exceed 100. So we created a user defined exception, right? This one. So it displays value error, marks cannot exceed 0. So by now, I hope it is clear to you how you can create a manual exception. Next, we have custom exceptions. So you can even create your own exception class, right? So to create your own exception class, let us have a look at this example quickly. Supposing I create a class invalid age error. And I inherit the properties from the exception class. I use pass as a placeholder here. I take input for age. Okay. And now we start with our try block wherein I write that if age is less than 18, it should raise invalid age error, which I just find that age must be 18 or above. Alright. Otherwise, it should print eligible. And now after moving out of this block of code, I write the except block accept invalid age error as E, print E. Okay, so now let us try to run it. Supposing I enter the age as, so age must be 18 or above, right? So you have created your own exception class named the invalid age error, which will display age must be 18 or above. Okay, let's try to run it again. 1 second. Yeah, so now if I enter the age as 20, so eligible. Again, supposing I enter the age as 14, so we'll get age must be 18 or above. So you have created your very own exception class here, which is the invalid age error. Next we have password validation. Supposing we want to try this code now. Supposing I take the input from the user for password. Alright. And now let us start with the try block, in which we'll mention that if the len of password is less than 8, then it should raise a value error, supposing, which is password too short. Otherwise, it should print password accepted. Okay. And now moving to our accept block, I'll write accept value error as E. It should print the error. Let us try to run this code now. So supposing I write AMI1 and try to run it. So it shows you an error, password too short. And if again I create a password, supposing 123, so password accepted. We have assessed both the cases. Okay. So this ways you can raise an exception if the password is too short. So this was for password validation. Next we have another example. Let us quickly understand it. So we have ATM withdrawal. So supposing I have a balance of, let me take it to be 5,000. Okay. And amount, we'll take the input from the user for the amount. That needs to be withdraw. And now starting with our try block, if the amount is greater than balance, then it should raise exception, which is insufficient balance. Otherwise, what it should do is balance minus equal to amount and then print the remaining amount. 1 second, I'll just shift it to the new line. That is why it is showing an error, right? Now it is fine. So it should print remaining balance as the balance. Now moving to our accept block, we'll write accept exception as E to call that exception, and it should print E. Okay. So supposing I enter a withdrawal amount, let us enter 6,000. So there is insufficient balance. We only have 5,000 in our bank account, right? Next, we can even take an example of supposing 1,200. So remaining balance would be 3,800 if we withdraw 1,200 from 5,000. Let us take another example. This will be our last one. Supposing I want to withdraw 3,000. So the remaining balance would be 2,000 that would be left back in my account. So it raises an exception when the balance is insufficient, right? If you try to attempt to withdraw an amount which is greater than your balance, you will get an exception of insufficient balance. Now that we are done with all the concepts about exception handling, I hope you are clear with all these and keep practicing, keep learning. That is it for the day.
Before we end this lecture, I'd like to share a few important tips with all of you. Learning Python doesn't end with watching videos. It begins when you start writing code on your own. So make it a habit to practice coding every day, even if it's just for 20 to 30 minutes. Don't be afraid of making mistakes. Every error you encounter is an opportunity to learn something new. In programming, debugging is just as important as coding. Also, whenever you learn a new concept, don't stop after running the example once. Modify the code, change the inputs, experiment with different approaches, and observe the result. That's how real learning begins. Next, try solving small problems without looking at the solution first. Even if you can't solve them immediately, your logical thinking will improve with consistent practice. And then keep revising the concepts you've already learned. Programming is a skill, and skills improve with repetition. Finally, remember this quote that has guided us throughout this journey. Begin with the determination to succeed, and the work is half done already. Stay curious, keep practicing, and never stop learning. In the next video, we'll revise the entire Python course through a comprehensive MCQ session. So make sure you guys join me there. Until then, happy learning and happy coding.